we have some good, important things to talk about today. We got some hopeful movement on voting rights, and we've also got January 6th this week. So there's a lot to talk about. But first of all, it's January 3rd. It's 2022. This is the midterms year. So, it's good to get off to a good start, get us all together, get rolling on all cylinders on the messaging front in 2022. So just welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining, and Happy New Year. And I think we wanted to kick off actually by just doing a quick review of some of our data from last year, which is pretty fun and exciting, and sort of speaks to the power of this group. So, and I think Lori was going to do that. Lori, you want to jump in?
Sure, I'll be glad to. All right. Okay. Well, last year, in 2021, we had elections in Virginia, but electorally, it was a much slower year compared to 2020. So our expectations were different about what impact we might have, but we still managed to do very well. I don't know if any of you have seen our 2020 impact report. Maybe Jamie or Nick could drop that in chat in case you haven't seen it. We did an incredible amount of organizing and fundraising and encouraging people to be active in 2020. And there was a lot of opportunity to do that. This year has been much more focused on making sure we still have a democracy in 2022, so we can elect our representatives rather than them choosing their own voters. But in 2021, we had about 36 billion impressions on Twitter. And if you remember from 2020, this is the kind of stuff that us data geeks memorize, is how many impressions we had every year. We've had equal to 2020 what we did in 2021. So that to me is just incredible work. It shows that, I had no expectation that we would get anywhere close to where we were in 2020, but we did. And so that's just amazing work. And the other thing is that we've done a lot of expansion over to Facebook, and we have seen our Facebook shares with our social media toolkits grow exponentially in the last 6 months or so. If you're on Facebook at all and you haven't joined our public group, I encourage you to do that. We have almost 2,000 members in our group, and that's where we will pass on the social toolkits, that are happening to be able to be shared on Facebook. So we're really excited about expanding over into Facebook. We know we have a lot of ground to make up as far as fighting disinformation. It's really important that good information gets shared from trusted people on Facebook, and you can really have an impact with your friends and family. Also in 2021, we drove a lot of actions through our coalitions and through ourselves. We had almost 13,000 legislative contacts, whether that was phone calls, emails, or tweeting at your representative to advocate for policy and for legislation. And that we had people from all 50 states plus Puerto Rico and DC making those contacts. So that is a phenomenal reach that we've had in the past year. We also did do some fundraising. We raised about $115,000 this year. And so that's not terrible in an off year. for organizations total, we raised about 13,000, and the vast majority of that went to Black and Brown led organizations. And so that's very exciting for us, and that we truly want to make sure that we're supporting our brothers and sisters, especially as they're serving some of our underserved communities. We participated in 16 different national coalitions, again, mostly committed to fighting for voting rights. And we also are part of the national team for comms in many of these groups. And so that gives us the ability to, make sure that the message works on social media, and that we're following good messaging guidelines and guidance for fighting disinformation and sharing the truth. I think that's all I had, Nick.
That's great. Thank you.
Anything I missed, Jamie? Taking it off?
This seemed like it to me.
I would say the only thing I would add is that we had almost 13,000 actual legislative contacts, mainly focused on voting rights. And even though this was an off year, we still had over 8,000 people sign up for events, whether it was, some of these democracy rallies, town halls, text banks, phone banks, all of the community events happening. So 8,000 people in a non-election year during COVID is still really good. And that was just sharing on social media.
So thanks. Good one to point out. And so I think the key point here is, because of what the point that Jamie just made, that this is all from social media shares. When Lori says we did this, she means collectively we, right? I mean, this unlike some other organizations that sort of like to post stuff on their main organizational social media accounts and get traction that way. Obviously, our model is to have all of us, all the people share all these links and opportunities to engage. And so these are our collective metrics. I just want to make that clear. And so we're super proud to be connected to everybody on this call. Thank you so much for your work in an off year, and it bodes well for us in going into 2022. That we continue to have such good traction with all of y'all and the social networks that you connect to. It's going to be a marathon year. It's we've got basically 10 months or 11 months, I guess, until 10 months until the election. We still don't know, because of all the maps that have not been drawn yet, all the maps that have been drawn and that are being where there are lawsuits filed against them. The House map looks really fuzzy, but the Senate map is pretty well laid out, and I think there's a lot of hope for us to continue to keep the Senate and potentially expand our majority in the Senate. We got to push back against folks, who are doomsday prognosticators out there, who are saying that there's no way that that Democrats can keep control of Congress or can take state houses or win governorships, whatever the elections are. A lot can happen this year, and environmental factors, external factors outside of who the candidates are going to matter a lot. Where we are in COVID, where we are in the economic recovery, and whether or not Democrats are able to get some of these voting rights bills passed and Build Back Better and all that. These all matter a lot in terms of party ID and the impressions of voters overall going into the election. So the most important thing that we can do is stay positive, keep people motivated, keep sharing information about all the wins that we're getting and the ways that our votes mattered a lot in 2020 and what those votes have produced, because they have produced a lot and some things yet to come. And to just keep focused on the GOP's undermining of our democracy and their clear intent to rule from the minority in perpetuity, which is scary, and we need to keep calling it out. So we're excited. I think we at Demcast feel that Jamie, Lori, and I feel optimistic about our chances, if pending certain pending certain things. Much more optimistic about our chances if the Senate pulls through on these voting rights bills. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I did want to mention really quick a couple of cool Demcast updates following on those the updates that Lori gave from our 2021 work. We, of course, behind the scenes, we have a small staff, and we have all these digital tools that we subscribe to and that help get the messaging out. We had a very generous donor at the end of the 2021 year, so in December, offer up a $50,000 matching donation, which would really help to solidify our organization going into 2022, even give us potentially the opportunity to expand a little bit. So we want to take full advantage of that match. So, I know some people can't give, some people have already given very generously. So not necessarily talking to you specifically, person, attendee or viewer, but if you can continue to spread word, and even if you're not giving more, and share our donation link. Lori, if you can drop, or Jamie, if you can drop the link with the one with the Pfeiffer video, would be great. In the chat, Dan Pfeiffer has become a really good advocate of ours. You may have seen in his message box newsletter today that he explicitly asked folks to join Demcast because he thinks what we're doing is a really important strategy. And the link that Jamie just dropped in there has a little video, if you haven't seen it yet, of Dan describing why our strategy of grassroots-driven organic digital messaging is so important going on into the future. So thank you so much to everybody who's given, and to those of you who can't give, but who give your time and your effort to help us achieve all these amazing things collectively. Can't thank you enough. And without further ado, let's go ahead and move into the updates section, and because we do want to leave time for Q&A too. So Jamie, I think we're going to start with voting rights.
Yep. I'm sure that everybody saw Schumer's statement. He has put a deadline of January 17th. So that is a big deal. Before that happens, he is going to be calling the freedom to vote up for a vote again. So that will probably be next week. Then once the Republicans block it again, he will be putting filibuster on the floor for debate. Manchin has been engaged very enthusiastically with a group of about 8 senators. That includes not only Schumer, but also senators like Warnock, Klobuchar, Merkley, and some moderates, Coons, Tester, Kane. So that's actually a very good collection of senators that are collaborating. kind of goes across the whole board. The consensus is once Manchin falls, Sinema will fall as well, but we have to keep the pressure up on him. Really how Schumer is saying to talk about filibuster right now is to avoid the use of the term filibuster. Really kind of talk about restoring the Senate to a deliberative body that welcomes debate. And what seems to be getting to Manchin is lifting up the words of Senator Byrd. That was the last time the rules were changed. So that's really where we want to focus on. We are so close to actually getting voting rights done right now. We have never been this close. You know, and when you're tweeting at Manchin, because we all know you do, one thing that really, instead of attacking, you know, really put this back on Manchin's shoulders. This is his bill. This is the bill that he wrote. So, you know, why would he want it to fail? That seems to be resonating with Manchin, that, you know, make Manchin take accountability for the bill that he wrote. There is a lot of, you know, great provisions, especially the election subversion portions. And as state legislatures go into session here in the next few weeks, we have to get this done now. Lauren, we think once Manchin falls, Sinema will fall. If you look at the words that Sinema has said, you know, she's talking about protecting the Senate, but instead of leaving it that, she's also brought up that, you know, she wants a debate on the Senate floor, which is actually why Schumer is doing this. This deadline that Schumer has set is really for Manchin and Sinema. So, but we need to kind of hold their feet to the fire right now. You know, we have a couple of weeks left. Otherwise, there's going to be no time to implement this before 2022. So, so we are really close. So to that end, there are a lot of events to put pressure up. First one, of course, is January 6th. Right now, there are 300 events on the map for January 6th. So this is not only a day of remembrance of what happened on January 6th, but also a call for the Senate to do whatever is necessary to pass voting rights. The Freedom to Vote Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, DC Statehood, and the Protecting Our Democracy Act. That will be the big 4 events, pieces of legislation that we're going to be asking for. After that, the King family is calling for a boycott of Martin Luther King Day unless voting rights are passed. They don't want anybody celebrating. They don't want anyone using MLK's words until voting rights are passed. So they will be doing an event on the 15th in Arizona, specifically targeting Sinema, and then a big event on the 17th, which is, notice coincidental dates of the MLK Day of Action and Schumer's deadline. That was done on purpose. So that's about the update. So,
and Jamie, somebody asked, Deb asked in the chat, would our time be better spent calling West Virginia and Arizona voters so that they can call their senators? And there are some phone banks and maybe some text banks for that, and maybe we could find a link.
There's no more text banks. Next week, there will be a couple of phone banks. They've kind of put them off for a couple of weeks for 2 reasons. First, it was a holiday. Second, people were getting a little irritated by the sheer number of calls that they were getting, not only for voting rights, but also for Build Back Better. So they wanted to give everybody a little bit of a break. So they are going to pull back on the phone banks because they don't want people upset.
Fair
So
enough.
big thing that you can do though is to call the White House. Their phone lines are open Tuesday through Thursday, 1 to 4 Eastern again. And Biden is really the one that can put the pressure on Sinema and Manchin. So I will drop that number in there. Because, I mean, if he uses his bully pulpit to really push the pressure on, we really need that. We need Biden and Harris speaking out, talking to these guys behind. We're seeing a lot more of that, especially with VP Harris, but we need even more. So.
Cosmo has a great question. Our phone bank efforts coordinated with other groups doing similar work? So Demcast, we don't make our own phone banks. We don't make our own canvassing. You know, what we sort of think of ourselves as curators of the movement, and we partner with a lot of organizations. So what we tend to try and do is share links to mobilize events that are from organizations on the ground in a given state or district, that as top priority, or like, you know, reputable, good, big national organizations too, at sometimes. So yeah, if you ever see a link from us for a volunteer opportunity that we're sort of pushing around, you can rest assured that it's a good option, and one that's rooted in community.
And the phone banks into West Virginia and Arizona have been coordinated with just using one link with the groups on the ground, so that there's not multiple groups calling in, because that's the last thing they want. They have stopped all texting because people were so annoyed.
Catherine says she's got a march in Jacksonville on Mlk Day. Not sure that people know about the boycott. I think that's going to happen, right? I mean, like Omar said, you can't boycott a day, right? In total, I think, but I think the messaging coming out of the King family themselves is to make a rhetorical point, if not, you know, more than that. And so obviously super powerful to have that family asking folks to abstain if the Senate doesn't come through. So
yeah, and I'll drop the website. You know, and especially if you do know the organizers, if you can, you know, talk to them and see if they can go on messaging, which is Deliver for Voting Rights. This is the website for the King events. So.
yeah, so obviously big week with January 6th, big month with the voting rights and Mlk Day coming up, and so we're going to be you know, trying to get messaging out to all of you on the regular over the next few weeks, to so that we can really be on point and try and get ahead of the narrative curve. But you know, beyond that, obviously, if they manage to change the filibuster rules and get the voting rights legislation passed, you know, obviously Build Back Better still hanging around out there, and so it's going to be a big sort of winter push for legislation and to secure the elections, and then and 1/6 accountability, and then you know, not too long into spring, it's going to really flip to a lot of candidate support and you know, just overall brand messaging for Democrats, because that brand's got to be shining if we're going to win in 2022, and that's going to take all of us. So unless Lori or Jamie, if you had any other comments or updates. And
I just want
I just
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, this is the exact wording of the King family. No celebration without legislation. On January 17th, join me to honor my father and the MLK legacy as we call on Congress and the White House to eliminate the Jim Crow filibuster and pass voting rights to protect millions of Black and brown voters. So that's really what it is no celebration without voting rights.
And I think you can, join those marches and still, participate, but with that theme that if Martin Luther King were here today, he would be pushing for voting rights. And I think we can definitely honor him in that way.
Yeah, and if you see any of the Republicans, and we know that they're going to start quoting MLK on that day, freaking troll them. Say, how dare you?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Maddie?
I was just going to tell you a little story. 2 weeks ago now, my crazy town decided that we were going to have an MLK Day Parade a month early so that because of COVID. So we did the parade, just the parade people. No crowds, no, and they're going to air it on TV. But my county party, we all held signs that said it had the give us the ballot quote from MLK. So we tried to make it about voting rights anyway.
Excellent.
And that's just an
Sweet.
idea.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think that's in the spirit of what the King family wants.
I also wanted to mention that on January 6th, there will be some events that we should be watching for and amplifying. In addition to the vigils, the president and the vice president will address Congress sometime in the morning before noon, and that will be on TV. And then also Speaker Pelosi will speak from the House floor. And there will be a candlelight vigil at 2:30 p.m. So,
And then there'll be a DC vigil at 4:30 on the steps of the Capitol.
so there'll be a lot to watch out for and amplify.
And CNN's doing a town hall at 8 Eastern. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, as Scott said in the chat, those are all Eastern times. So make your calculation appropriately in your head,
And then
depending
if
on where
you
you're
want
at.
to amplify the local vigils, the hashtag is since January 6th.
Can you put that in chat, Jamie?
Yeah. I fought against it and I lost. But it was the best of the choices.
Yeah, they had some really, really bad ideas for the hashtags on this one. So this was the compromise. So
I will admit I have been using democracy vigils in my posts. So then there is also, we have a social media campaign to share about the events. And we actually have specific ones for Facebook and Instagram this time. So there's actually some of the Facebook ones have some GIFs and stuff in it. So they're a little bit longer, a little bit more hashtags specifically for those platforms.
is this, Lori, Jamie, is this to recruit people to join the events?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it.
And then there is, if there's not an event in your area, there is one final host call tomorrow. So if you're interested in possibly hosting, you can join the host call tomorrow, and they can answer any questions you have. And it's a coalition of a lot of organizations. Demcast, Declaration for American Democracy, Common Cause, Public Citizen, the Sierra Club, League of Women Voters, Stand Up America. I mean, the list just goes on there's over 100 organizations involved. We are on the comms team on that. So there's about 20 of us that are on the comms team doing messaging.
Awesome.
And Omar, I'm gonna get you the direct YouTube link to that Dan Pfeiffer video. The one that we posted earlier, the Act Blue page that we posted earlier has a link to just Dan talking at the top, and it's about 10 minutes. But I'll post the full video that has Senator Doug Jones too, for folks on this call.
Yeah, it's been hard to write posts with that since January 6th, I'll tell you. So.
All right.
Anybody have any questions, thoughts? Can raise your hand or drop it in chat. Oh yeah, there was a question. Sorry, there was a question about the thing is when I'm sharing. Sorry, there was a question about whether we should ignore Trump. I guess on January 6th, my response is always ignore Trump. Don't give his bullshit the light of day. He's going to get plenty of it from the press and everywhere else anyway. What we can try and do is counter what he says with truth using our own frame on social media that day. But quoting him or sharing video of him is just totally counterproductive. So.
Although the hashtag was terrible, or the overall messaging for January 6th is good, which is January 6th was a violent and deadly attack against all Americans, against our country, our democracy, and our freedom as voters to choose the leaders that represent us. So this year, January 6th, exactly 1 year later, Americans across race, party, place, and background are holding candlelight vigils to say, in America, the voters decide the outcome of elections. The promise of democracy is not a partisan issue, but a calling that unites us as Americans. To prevent this kind of attack from happening again, our elected officials must pass urgent legislation that will protect this country from anti-democratic forces who are continuing their efforts to destroy it. That's the overall messaging. So, so that was good, even though we didn't win on the hashtag, at least we got good overall messaging.
Yep.
I have a question. The hashtag since January 6th, can you explain to me how we explain that? Because I don't understand it. The fact that we're losing democracy since January 6th?
The idea was that, you know, it keeps happening, but when you're posting about events, it's hard to write a post with that hashtag. So quite frankly, I have been using more of the secondary hashtags. So I've used democracy vigils more than anything, to tell you the truth. So
I think that, yeah, sometimes a hashtag is, if it's not super effective as a message in unto itself, it's really just more of a tag for a post. So I guess, you know, I would probably stash it toward the end of my post, and maybe include another one that makes more sense. So that you can get some of the traffic that's coming off of this, because a lot of organizations and folks will be using this since January 6th, just because the coalition's using it. So,
you know, and the other one that people are using is just Gen 6. So that's another one I've been using a lot, is just.
Jamie Cosmo asked if some of the messages that you've been reading are available somewhere.
Messages.
Yeah, you've been the thing you just read.
Yes. Let me pull up. there is actually a website.
And Joan just mentioned this is her first experience with Demcast. Awesome to have you. I do a terrible job on every call, and don't because we have so many of these, and I often forget to do the little spiel at the beginning. So sorry about that for folks who are joining. We actually had a ton of people join Demcast today because Dan Pfeiffer shared our join link in his message box newsletter. So sorry to folks who are new to the group. I'll do I'll do better next time.
And we don't usually hit our limit when we don't have a special guest, which is why we only had 100. When we have a special guest, we do a webinar and have 500. But thanks everyone for joining. We really weren't expecting this big of a crowd. Otherwise, we would have upped our limit. So.
Yep. Yeah. It's always the trade-off, because we love having these meetings where we can see faces and people can ask questions and all that kind of stuff. But that's the trade-off with that, is we have the 100-person limit for the meetings. Any other questions, thoughts, comments about what's to come, midterms, anything? We got a little bit of time left, so. Brittany?
Okay. I've been coming to this couple of briefings for Demcast. It was very eye-opening, and I cannot wait till the 2022 midterm election. And I have a question about the voting. I'm sorry, about the June January 26th event.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering if I can host the phone banking for my area, for my before the January 6th event in my hometown. I live in Bakersfield.
Jamie, is there a Bakersfield event yet? Maybe you and Jamie could connect after the call and
I saw, actually, unfortunately, I just saw it.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot in California, Texas, Florida, obviously have a lot. So
It's great. So maybe since there's one already, you can just join forces with the folks who are already doing it there. But that'd be great. Everybody just stay safe if you're going to a vigil, and mask up and all that.
Yeah, most groups are requiring masks and social distancing. And since they are outside, the risk is a lot lower outside. So they're not letting anyone do indoor in-person events. They're requiring that they're all outdoor. So
and Jamie, do we in the Demcast link, the mobilize link, if people go search that, would people be able to find virtual versions? Okay.
Yep.
Because I know, I mean, Omicron's raging, baby. I doubt that there's somebody on this call who doesn't know somebody in their circle who's gotten it. So it's good to be prudent, and to whatever extent we can participate in the vigil, either as a community online, as on a Zoom type event, or just together online on social, sharing videos of ourselves with candles or whatever. That's all really a great way to be a part of it as well.
And many of these events are going to be live streamed. And so if you're not able to go in person, you'll be able to find so many of them live streamed.
Heidi?
Is there any updates or news on the Build Back Better front?
Yes. Mansion is back at the table on one condition, and that is on the child tax credit. He wants either eliminated
TSA.
or the annual wages lowered. He wants to cap it at 60,000. So, so people making over 60,000 would not be eligible.
Is that for a household, like 2 people or?
I think I think a couple was like 75,000. Right now, people making up to 400,000 as a couple, 200,000 individually are eligible. And that's where he's kind of drawing the line. He wants it significantly lowered. But the positive of that, would actually be permanent and not just for 3 years or a year. So, and it sounds like he is willing. What we're hearing on that is that there are probably going to be some programs that are cut out of the Build Back Better. But in exchange, instead of this 1 to 3 years that's in the bill right now, up to 5 years, most of the programs are only 1 to 5 years. The programs that made it would be permanent, so that they don't have to be reauthorized in, a couple of years. So, but he is back at the table.
Yeah, totally. Francesca, the incredibly shrinking Build Back Better. And hopefully we can get something done. And, we just have to learn from this experience that we need to not have a 50-50 Senate and make even more gains in 2022 so we can do some of the stuff that's going to end up getting cut from the bill. Larry asked if we're working with Jiggy Geronimo and Anat Shankar Osorio. We absolutely are. If you go to our Amplify page on demcast.com, where some
Maybe
of
it'll
our
make you guys feel better.
tools-
Jiggy came up with since January 6th. If that makes you guys feel any better about
makes
that.
me feel a little bit better. Makes me feel a little bit better. No, we're good friends of theirs, and they help us. They help give feedback on some of our stuff, and so definitely take that messaging advice into account, along with folks like Dan and others who are working in this space.